You are listening to an exclusive on PodHub Network. Your city, your podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Back to the Burgh, presented by the PodHub Network. My guest today actually doesn't hail from the Burgh, but he is a Pittsburgh Steelers superfan from Indianapolis, Indiana. Formerly a radio host in Indiana, he used his vocal talents to land himself a job with a company at the pinnacle of sports comedy with Barstool Sports. Please welcome my guest, Joey Mulinaro. Joey, how you doing, man?
Cody, what's happening, dude? Glad to be here, man. Doing well, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So basically, I don't know if you're familiar with the show at all, but we just get to know our guests and who they are. And you're the first guest that isn't from Pittsburgh, because that's the whole scope of the show. Okay. But we had to talk to a Pittsburgh Steelers superfan. So tell us, what was it like growing up in Indiana? Because us Western PA people don't really know what that's like.
It's definitely a lot flatter than where you guys are. That's one of my favorite parts about going out to Pittsburgh. We usually make it out there once or twice a year. Is the scenic views and the hills and the all that you guys have out there. So a lot flatter. A lot more basketball fans instead of hockey fans. I feel like obviously you guys tend to roll more with the NHL and with hockey, and rightfully so. And then here, instead of that, we focus more on basketball. But we have a shared love of the NFL. I will say that Pittsburgh people and fans are much bigger fans of football and the NFL, and real fans, compared to a lot of the people who I grew up with out here. So a little bit of differences, but there's some similarities in there too.
So, like, was there a place where you and your friends would go and hang out, and, like, that was the spot?
Ooh, no, I think Pittsburgh is different in that way, too. We didn't – I was just a Catholic school kid growing up, so, whoever had the basement, whoever's parents weren't the most strict, that's where we usually end up. And then – once we got to college and everything, that changed a little bit. Once we could start going to different bars and everything, then we kind of had, our more regular hangouts. But growing up, no, it was just, like I said, whoever's parents went to bed the earliest and who didn't care if we snuck out, and whoever had the basement. So
you mentioned the bars. What's your favorite bar to go to back in Indianapolis?
It changes a lot. We have this really cool place called the Rathskeller.
Okay.
It's like it's a German. It's like a mix of like a lot of weddings happen there, a lot of like wedding receptions happen there, and they have a restaurant, but they also have a pub area, and then they have this really big courtyard outside in the back, like a beer garden. It really a beer garden, and that's a really poppin' place in Indy. So right now, that'd probably be my favorite spot. It's when the weather especially is like this, and then over the summer, being outside in that beer garden is just a ton of fun.
Awesome. So, like, back to growing up, were you an athlete growing up? Did you play a lot of sports?
I did. Yeah. Sports ran my life, really, when I was a kid, in terms of, I played CYO football and basketball, and I played a lot of travel baseball. So I was going around the country, going around the Midwest, playing baseball during the spring and summer. And in the fall and the winter, like I said, I'd play, football for my CYO school, and then basketball as well. So yeah, man, I mean, when I wasn't watching sports and rooting for my teams, I was active and I was playing them for sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned travel baseball. Did you ever cross paths with anybody that made it into the major leagues or even the minor leagues?
Yeah. There's a kid who grew up, I want to say he's like 6 years younger than I am, but he went to the same high school that I did, and he got drafted in the first round by the Tampa Bay Rays 2 years ago.
Okay.
Nick Schnell, you may have seen that name, and I don't know how much you follow baseball, but he got drafted in the first round by them, and then a guy that I grew up playing against. I didn't grow up with him, but he went to our rival school here.
Yeah.
He got drafted by the Marlins, I believe. His name is Dylan Peters. I think he's a relief pitcher or a starter for them right now. But other than that, I'm trying to think. No one else really that I grew up with or was really tight with.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's just like it's cool to look back and be like, wow, like I played with that kid, you know?
Yeah, I played with Nick. I played with his older brother, so I knew him. He was a little kid, coming to our
Yeah.
games when I was playing with him in high school. And then Nick, he sprouts up and he's a stud center fielder, and he bats lefty, and he's just got the whole package.
He's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, right. So he's this, he's honestly, I'd say somebody you're probably familiar with, Austin Meadows.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd say that's a pretty good comp for him. Athletic, bigger guy from the left side of the plate, fast. So that's who Nick Schnell would kind of remind me of. But that's about it.
Gotcha. So growing up, did you see yourself as becoming like a entertainer or a broadcaster? Is that in your mind as a young, like when you were growing up, like as a teenager?
Yeah, definitely. When I realized when I was like 12 or 13 years old that I wasn't gonna, play center field for the Chicago Cubs one day, or go to Notre Dame to play football, like then my mind immediately turned to, being in the media, being on the radio. David Letterman is from Indianapolis, and so that was always a big thing for me. Is what was like, well, if he could do it, then that's an opportunity or a pathway of somebody who's like me from where I'm from can make it as well. So I always looked at that, and he always said that, he always got C's and D's in like math and science, which I usually got like C's or like, low B's. It was never my strong suit, but he was always really good in his speech class. And I was the same way. And so I was always kind of like, okay, well, that seems to be, more of my natural ability, more of, something that I'm better at. Don't see myself becoming an accountant or a doctor or anything like that. Nor did I want to. Not that there's anything wrong with that. We definitely need plenty of those, and those people are very smart and good at what they do. But for me, I always looked at somebody again like David Letterman or like Jimmy Fallon or different people like that. It's like, okay, if you can find a way to be able to interview people and kind of speak for your living and entertain, that's kind of the pinnacle. So that's always what I wanted to do since I was 13, 14 years old.
That's awesome. So I want to know your friend Ben. You guys do a lot of stuff together, a lot of content. When did you guys meet up? Because it seems like you have really good chemistry. It seems like you guys might have even grown up together. Is that true or not?
That is, you hit the nail on the head, man. I've known of Ben since I was probably like 8 years old.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, we went to the same. He's 3 years older than me.
Okay.
So we grew up going to the same Catholic grade school in the south side of Indianapolis. And then we went to the same high school and the same college for a little bit. And some of my best friends, their older brothers ran with Ben. And then just people that I knew who were a little bit older than me ran with Ben. And so we always kind of had like a little, a big brother, little brother type relationship, where he would kind of give me a hard time, and he played football, I played football, but we always kind of like had that respect for each other. He was always like, I like that Joey kid, and I always looked up to him. And then once we got into the professional world, we both knew that we were both kind of working part-time just to scrape in for any hours that we could get at a radio station here in Indy. And I kind of just approached him and was like, hey man, we've known each other forever, we know we want to do this kind of stuff. We know we want to make people laugh when we try to team up and do it together. And so from that point on, late 2016, early 2017, he was like, yeah, let's do it. And so from that point on, we've just been trying to make as much as we can, collabing on videos together, doing skits together. We hosted a podcast together for 2 years, before I had to bounce to go to Barstool and everything, which he still hosts. It's called Espresso. So yeah, man, I've known him for a long time. We still talk on a daily basis and try to collab as much as we can.
That's really awesome. Because I interviewed John Burkett. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a famous baseball player. But he also had I had his best friend from childhood on, and it's like they're in their 50s and they've been friends since they were like 8 years old. So I always find it fascinating when people are able to keep those connections for so long.
Yeah, that's very much what I grew up with. The 7 of the 8 guys, let's see. Yeah, no, trying to think. I had Rye. How many people do we have in our wedding party? 7, 8. Anyways, seven or all 8 of the groomsmen that were up there with me on my wedding day. I had known since I was 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
I think 4 or 5 of them we were in the same 4th grade class together. So that's how I grew up. That's the community that I grew up around. Very, tight knit. Everybody knows each other, and everybody stays friends, luckily, for a really long time.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So let's start talking about college. I looked up your LinkedIn. There's not much on it.
Yeah, man, that's good Lord. I don't even.
But that's how I found out where you went to college.
Okay, yeah, I think I made like 3 of them because I would forget my password for each one, and then I don't even know. But yeah, I probably need to look into that.
So I looked at it. You went to Ball State. Did you go in as a communications broadcasting major?
I did, and that just shows you how many different ones I had because I went to Ball State my freshman year, and then I transferred from there after.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you're going to get to that or not. I may have spoiled that, but
no, I only saw the one.
Yeah, so I went to Ball State for my freshman year, and yes, I went there because of the David Letterman program and building that they have there in communications, and I got to be on the radio and host my own show. My first semester in college, which was just like the most amazing thing ever for me. So I did that, and then in the after my freshman year, I bounced back to Indy.
Okay, so let's talk about college radio because I'm fascinated by it. I did it, and I have friends who are also fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm.
But what you said you got to do it your first semester. What was that like, just being the new guy on campus, and then they just threw you in front of a mic? What was it like?
Yeah, it was very intimidating because, obviously you go into Ball State and it's a program and a school that's really known for their communications and putting out broadcasters and sports announcers. And so, I walk in there and there's these upperclassmen that have been doing it. And there's these other kids from different schools who had high school programs that I didn't. And so I was like, oh man, this is going to be tough. This is wild. We actually had auditions to where you had to go in, pitch your show name, then you had to do a 5 or 10 minute monologue or kind of rant that you would do during your sports talk radio show. And that was wild because I had never done anything like that before. I'd done some color commentating for my high school sports radio broadcast, but that was it. So it was very intimidating, but I had confidence because again, I knew I wanted to do something like that. And luckily enough, I think they kind of gave me a break and threw me an hour on Thursday nights from 7 to 8 in the first semester on my own. And it was my show, and learned a lot, got some reps, but it was very intimidating.
So did you start out mainly just talking about sports? Was there no comedy to it you later brought into it?
Yeah, no, the comedy aspect of all this definitely came about later on. At that point, it was well, I want to be like a Colin Cowherd or like a Max Kellerman or, Stephen A. Smith or whatever. I just want to be a personality and watch sports and talk about sports. And because I hadn't really been open up to a whole lot else. I always enjoyed kind of making people laugh and doing different things like that in high school, but that just wasn't as much of a realistic path in my mind at that time. So it was straight up just sports.
That's awesome. So you were looking kind of more stable than dreams.
Yeah, just because I've said before, growing up, especially where I grew up and the schools that I went to, there's different programs and pathways you see to be, a police officer or a nurse or a teacher or a doctor or an accountant or any of these things. But there's not any just straight pathway to becoming like David Letterman. That's just not a real thing. It wasn't a real thing then. And it still kind of isn't now. And so I just had no idea how to go about that. So I was my closest way of trying to maybe start going down that path is, like Letterman, he went to Ball State and then he came back and worked on the radio and worked as a weatherman in Indianapolis, for a local TV station. So it's like, okay, well, if I can get the opportunity to do something like that, and then maybe, use my personality to tell jokes or do whatever it is, then, maybe I'll be onto something. So that was the thought process behind the whole thing.
Cool. So with that said, what was your first job out of college? Did you go straight into radio, or did you have to work your way up into radio?
Yeah. So when I transferred back to University of Indianapolis for my sophomore year, I started getting little opportunities here and there. And then my junior year is when I started working part-time at our cluster of radio stations in downtown Indy, just once a week. I would do like the 7 to midnight shift or the midnight to 6 a.m. shift, just watching the board, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, hey, it was a foot in the door and it was extra money on the side. So it was, it was great. So I started doing that August of my junior year. And then from that point on, I worked my way up. I started being able to do like scoreboard updates on the air and overnight shifts to where I could, get my voice on the radio. And then, just different, whatever they threw, producing Butler basketball games and producing the Colts pregame show and postgame show and just any of that kind of stuff. Anything they threw at me. And then eventually in like 2017, I started doing digital work for those radio stations, managing the website and the social media pages and YouTube and, doing different content like that. I had been doing that ever since.
That's awesome. So working in Indiana radio, did you ever cross paths with Pat McAfee?
I did. Yeah. That's actually how I met my wife.
Oh,
yeah. McAfee retired February of 2017. He started what was Barstool Indy, what became Barstool Heartland. We were both interns for him that summer. Met her there. We got married 2 years later. But yeah, so I spent a summer working for Pat. Still keeping in contact with Pat today.
that's awesome. I remember because it was my dream to work for Barstool. It still is. But I remember seeing like their videos come out for the interview process. And it was like the day after that they did it. And I was like, how did I not hear about this? Like, I was like, I would have packed up my car. Like, I was going to school in West Virginia at the time. Yeah. I was like, I would have packed up my car. I would have drove overnight and gotten there if I would have known about this.
Right.
So I'm highly jealous of that experience.
Yeah. And he still has, Foxy and Connor Campbell and Zito and Schmidt, all those guys were, interns with us. So,
yeah. They all do great work too. I keep up with PMI as much as I can.
Yeah, for sure. Good dudes.
So you ended up getting a job, like being a radio host, and you started doing your Andrew Luck impression, which you said went regionally viral.
Yeah.
Whenever that happened, was it like, oh, this is a cool gag to do on radio? Or were you like, let's take advantage of this and see where we can take it?
Yeah, it was just something else that, again, it was just how do you make yourself stand out from other people trying to do the same thing as you. So that, that's something that gained me a little notoriety around here in terms of, the Colts started to take notice, and then the different, local TV people, instead of just like not knowing who the hell I was at Colts training camp, they were like, oh, Andrew, Joey, you're, you know what I mean? Putting that together. So it was just, again, it was like, okay, this is something that I could do. And then he retired, and then that all, kind of went to shit, even though I still do it every now and then.
Yeah. So you started doing that. And then when did you start doing like the Coach O, Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney? Like, when did you think, okay, let's venture out and do some more to try and get more eyes on your career?
Yeah, Luck retiring, it was, at the time it really, really sucked for a lot of reasons, but it ended up helping me because, I had to find different people to try. So from that point, Coach O took off with LSU and they were doing so well. I could do him pretty well. And so that worked out. And then Saban, I just gave that a shot. And around Thanksgiving time last year, boom, it took off. And then all of a sudden I started having, those two. I'm doing Bobby Boucher, and I still work Luck every now and then. And then, Mike Golick Jr. and, just anybody who I could, think that I could do, and try out. And I did.
Yeah. So explain how that got picked up by Barstool. How did that process go? Who noticed you first? Who got in contact with you? What was that experience all like?
Yeah, it was interesting because little by little, like Pardon My Take would retweet my stuff, or Hank would retweet my stuff, or Barstool would ask to use it. Like a few other outlets were asking, and it was like, okay, this is starting to pick up a little bit. And then January or February of February of this year of 2020, the combine was in Indy, like it is every year, and Pardon My Take guys, they come to Indy for that every year. So me being a fan and knowing that, I hit up Hank and was like, hey man, I know you guys are gonna be in Indy, would love to link up and do something. And he's like, yeah, for sure. And then Big Cat followed me and messaged me and was like, hey man, I don't know what your day-to-day is like. Me and Dave have been talking about you, blah, blah, blah. Would love to meet up and chat when we're in Indy. I was like, hell yeah, this is great. This is crazy. So from there, when they came to Indy, I met up with them, and me and Big Cat and PFT did some videos together and hung out for a couple hours. And then Big Cat got my information and sent it over to Dave. And then, later that night, I was having a conversation on the phone with Dave and going from there.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So we've talked about your career, how you've gotten here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about your fandom.
Yeah.
How did you become a Steelers fan, being all the way in Indiana?
Yeah, well, I mean, I tell people all the time, they don't call it Steelers Nation for nothing. It really is a nation. It is everywhere. Not only that, but my dad was was a kid growing up watching football in the 70s, and he was in Indy, and the Colts didn't come to Indianapolis until 1984.
Yeah.
My dad had 13 or 14 years of watching pro football in the time where the Steelers were dominating it the most, where he latched on and became a Steelers fan. So by the time the Colts got here, my dad was 15 or 16, and his loyalties were already there. He wasn't going to switch over to the Colts. He's already a Steelers fan. Plus, the Colts were just god awful for a really long time. So from that point, he passed it down to me and my sister, and now my sister's husband and my wife even gets on board, and my mom is a huge fan. So it's a very big thing in our family.
Awesome. So you mentioned before that you take a lot of trips to Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite thing to do in Pittsburgh other than go to a Steeler game?
Yeah, I love going down to the little is it Strip District? Yeah, I love going down there where the original Permanis is, and all those little shops and street markets and everything are. That's kind of like our routine. We'll usually get there on a Friday night, have dinner, hang out, go to sleep, and then in the morning on Saturday, the day before the game, obviously, then we'll spend most of Saturday going down to those shops, rocking our Steelers gear, buying more Steelers stuff, going to lunch at Permanis, watching some college ball, and then we'll kind of work our way either, back closer to Heinz, maybe, we went to Tequila Cowboy, last time.
Oh, yeah, I love Tequila Cowboy.
Yeah, Tequila Cowboy is great. I was looking for Todd Haley, didn't see him. But, yeah, so we usually we'll start there, and then we'll end up our way back towards Heinz Field before we call it a night, and then get ready for game day.
Awesome. So what is your favorite Steelers moment in history? Both one that you've witnessed and one just in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough in general to look past the Immaculate Reception. I mean, it's just such an iconic moment in football history and NFL history. I mean, that's tough to beat. But the one that I've witnessed, the Santonio Holmes touchdown catch is definitely 1 or 1A. But man, the James Harrison interception, pick 6 in Super Bowl 43, that was just such a exhilarating moment. I just remember, because you're thinking, oh man, like they're about to take the lead here before half. This is this is not good. We've been dominating this game, and all of a sudden the Cardinals are going to have the lead. And then, boom,
Complete
just
momentum switch.
out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, even you could feel it while you're watching it, the momentum switch. And then not only does he pick it off, but he scores. So I just remember going into half and just feeling really, the Mulinaro house felt really good. Everybody was just like, okay, we've got him where we want him. We extended the lead now. Like, this is good. And also, like, what a play. That's insane. So those three in my mind really are some that stick out to me.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I had another question. I lost it. Shit.
All good.
Let's talk about the Steelers now. Like, there's so much hype around the Steelers this season. When this comes out, we'll be, I think, 4, maybe 5 weeks into the season. But right now, after week 2, what are your thoughts on the team? Do you think we're good to go? Like, nobody can stop us? Or do you think there's some things that we could work on?
Well, I think it's nice that, especially after the last couple of years, starting the season 2-0, haven't had that happen since 2017. Obviously, 2018 and 2019 were not the most ideal starts to the season. So just kind of having everything be quiet and okay for a while, just starting 2-0. It may not have looked that pretty against the Broncos in the second half, but hey, you're 2-0. There's no drama going on right now. So that's been really nice, because the past 2 years, obviously, Ben's out and we're 0-2, 0-3, 0-4. Oh my God, we're terrible. This is gonna be a first pick. 2018, we tied the Browns. Holy cow, 1-1. Like, all this nonsense going on. Right now, we're just like maintain at a nice level. And I think what's good too is that you're 2-0, but there's still just a lot of meat left on the bone. A lot of improvement to make. Both, I think, on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. There were pressuring the quarterback a lot, which is good, and we'll keep doing. But, still too many third down conversions in my mind. Still too many penalties on the defensive side. Offense, still too many sputtering drives where, they'll on 1st and 10, we'll go back 4 or 5 yards, or, Deontay Johnson will fumble. I mean, like, there's still too many things to clean up on the offensive side too. And Ben's still shaking off the rust a little bit, I think, which is nice. After week 2, he's thrown 5 touchdowns and 1 interception and has looked really good and healthy thus far. So I say, I think that we're on the right path. We're heading the right direction. But if you can clean up those things on both sides, then, we're going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that the team needs to work on, or offensively what we should be doing, is we need to take the cap off the offense, I think. I think we're still doing a lot of dink and dunk passes like we were with our 2 backups last year. But it's like, we have Big Ben back there. We have a future Hall of Famer throwing the ball. Shouldn't we be throwing the ball downfield?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And to that point as well, pick up the tempo a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't mind. I don't know why we're always feeling like we have to come out to start a game, going in the huddle and having 2 tight ends and doing these long developing run plays. At some point, I'd like to just say, you know what, we're going to come out and we're going to be rolling, and we're not going to wait until late in the second half or when we have to pick things up again. We're going to come out and let Big Ben do what he does and spread the ball around and go up tempo and put the defense on their heels. So I'd like to see that too.
Yeah. Now let's make some way too early predictions. Who do you think is going to be the Steelers team MVP?
Big Ben.
You think?
Yeah, I think especially, after last year, and then, pray to God that he can stay healthy through the regular season. I mean, you've already seen time and time again in the first 2 games how valuable he is to this team and the difference he makes with him being on the field, as compared to, even though Duck's my friend and I don't know Mason, but compared to those 2 guys, you can see it already. So I think that if he's hopefully again healthy for all 16 games, there's not going to be a doubt that anybody can say he's our most valuable player.
Awesome. So before we get out of here, I know you're a Cubs fan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice for Pirates fans who are dealing with a similar situation of not winning for a very long time? How do you cope with it? Because I've tried so many things, and I think I've I don't know. I just don't know where I'm at right now with the Pirates.
Yeah, man, that's it's tough because when the Cubs were, I've been lucky really as a Cubs fan in my lifetime. I mean, born in 1993, so when I'm 5 years old, Sammy Sosa's in the home run race and they're in the wild card. So that's fun to watch. And then 2003, obviously they make their run to the NLCS. Then you go to 2007, 2008, back-to-back division champions, even though they didn't do anything in the playoffs. Still, it's like they're winning the division, going to the playoffs. So I've been really lucky, and then you had the really down times, 2010 to 2013 was really, really bad. 2014, you was like, okay, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Anyways, what I'm saying is I've been lucky because in those really down times for Cubs fans, at least in my lifetime, there was always like, okay, there's a plan. Like we're being really bad and we're clearing house to build this farm system for a reason. And like in a couple of years, watch out. And like Theo's there and like he's got a plan. And it came to fruition, right? Like 2015 magical, 2016 obviously the best year ever, 2017 back to the NLCS. Like it happened. So I don't really know for Pirates fans because I'm not familiar enough to know like what's going on with the leadership, what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I had to laugh whenever you said there was a plan because it must be nice to have a plan.
And that's with following as many Pittsburgh people that I do, obviously I see a lot of Buccos fans and everything, and that's kind of the consensus I felt is like nobody knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any good advice because, like I said, like in my lifetime and my team, baseball's been bad. It's like we're being bad for a reason, and we're going to be good eventually. But I just don't know with the Pirates.
Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, I guess you just like you rely on that you have like really super cool uniforms and your ballpark is phenomenal. And, we're going to keep riding with them. And because we got a pretty good setup here with those two things. And then once they're good, it's like, all right, this is great. So,
yeah, it was – listen, I had the best year of baseball whenever we went to the NL wild card and the Cueto pitch and Russell Martin taking him yard.
That was a great –
those are my Pittsburgh Pirates memories that are positive, and that's all I have. So
yeah, and what's interesting too, I guess I have to apologize a little bit because the Indianapolis Indians, they're your guys' farm team.
They are.
So obviously they're not turning over too great a talent there. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, sorry to get into Pirates talk. I know you're a Cubs fan, but what's frustrating is our minor league teams, they actually win a lot of championships. They do well. But it's like once they go to the major leagues, it's like, oh, don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's tough, and I guess you can just fall back on that. The Steelers are looking good, and the
exactly.
Penguins always seem to be in the mix of things. So there you go.
Exactly. Well, Joey, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come on, and best of luck to you, man.
No problem, Cody. Always down to talk some Steelers and hang, and appreciate you reaching out. We'll talk soon, buddy.